Hello, welcome to the AppleInsider Podcast. I'm William Gallagher. Our sponsors this week are Nordstella and Claude by Anthropic. More about both of those later. And I'm joined by Wes Hilliard, as ever. But today, this is particularly important to me because I'm just this second in from a school. And you know what it's like in a school? I was working as a visiting author. You can have your phone with you, fine, but it can't be on. So I had no clue whether anything launched since Wednesday. And it looks like no. Apple's definition of a week is yet again 3 days only. Is American just have shorter weeks than British people? What's going on there?
I think we tend to have longer weeks. So some people definitely want the 4-day work week. But no, it just seems to be that Apple likes their Monday through Wednesday announcements, which is fine. They if they spread it out anymore, it would have been silly. Like here's a Studio Display on one day and a MacBook on the other. Like that would have been too much. Honestly, 3 days might be too much, but it does help us in our coverage because then we get to kind of slowly pace through, and it kind of happened in a way that we weren't expecting.
Well, I was actually figuring 3 days was like it because we've had this here before. Did I have this with you, or was it just in my head? That might say a lot about me. I was having a running kind of bet of what sequence this would come out in. I was trying to work out what was the most dramatic reveal order, and I got it totally wrong, really, and things.
Well, everyone assumed we would get an iPhone on one day.
Yeah.
iPads the other, and then Macs the next. But Apple just completely pulled the rug out from under us and said, here's a MacBook and an iPad, an iPhone, and then a couple of MacBooks, and then another MacBook. So it was weird. I looked back just to see, and we have been talking about all these products in rumors and leaks as far as things go. Mm-hmm. Like the Studio Display XDR was leaked via code. But funny enough, none of the leakers had really been talking about it other than a brief mention here or there of like Apple's working on a better one. But it never seemed like there was two. Maybe one Gurman report a while ago said there was two.
Just in a few days before it, there was a report that actually, I've got to say, didn't look that believable to me, that Apple was going to do two. And the reason it didn't look believable to me was, I think it said that the lesser one, whatever it would be on Thunderbolt 3. I get the Thunderbolts mixed up. I still think 5. Jerry Anderson every time I say the word, and that there'd be this more expensive one. And because it seemed unlikely that they'd stick with comparatively ancient technology, I assumed the whole report was wrong, but actually they got it right, that there were two, just not the details of both of them. But yeah, that was the one shot I saw at it.
Yeah, and then Apple also leaked the MacBook Neo name the day before it was announced.
That was a bit of a slip up for Apple, wasn't it? They're usually so tight and controlled on what they do.
Yeah, this is unusual for Apple to accidentally share something. Regulatory filings, it's a thing. We that's usually where we hear about names ahead of time. It's the only place we can hear about names because no one's going to leak MacBook Neo. But I was just kind of perusing different rumors, and this event was an odd one. It feels like this is one of the lesser covered ones where we almost didn't know what to expect. Like we said last week, the rumors were from everything from a new MacBook model to Apple releasing Apple Intelligence and the new robotic arm and all. Like it was just like all the hopes and dreams of everyone at Apple could possibly appear. And we had a couple of reports, like obviously Mark Gurman being a bit more specific about it. Like he said 3 days, 5 products. He was right about 3 days. He was wrong about 5 products. I think he was off by 1 or 2 because it was, let's go down the list. We have an iPhone 17e, a MacBook Air, Studio Display, technically 2 Studio Displays, but I'll count it as 1.
That's harsh, but I agree, yes.
Yeah, a MacBook Pro and the iPhone and the MacBook Neo. So if we don't count 2 Studio Displays, it's 5 products. So perhaps that was what he was going for. I won't get too pedantic about it, but even then, he didn't name which products he expected. It was almost I'm sure someone internal. I don't know how his leaks work, but that might have just been all he was told is expect 5 products. But the fact that we didn't quite know what to expect is just odd to me. Like, it was floating around the ether, like, oh, there might be a Studio Display ready, and it's been ready for a while. It could show up at any time, but then there was also this iPad that did not show up, and that's the most glaring one here because that was the absolute. Everyone thought the iPad with A19 Pro or whatever was going to arrive, or A19, and it didn't. There is no iPad.
I was actually wondering about an Apple TV, but mostly out of curiosity to see what in the world could they have changed. I like my current one. But yeah, okay. Actually, I think we need to explain something, possibly to me. I mentioned there the event. This is not an event in the usual way. It was not live streamed. Our Andrew was there at the New York one, but it was like 3 personal briefings for selected people in, I presume, somewhere in California, definitely New York, and one in London.
Shanghai.
Shanghai as well. So 4. So pretty much global, but none of them.
China anyway. I might have gotten Shanghai wrong. But yes, it was like 9 p.m. in China, which is really funny.
I do remember when the Halloween launch was coming, the Scary Fast thing. There was simulcast to go at a particular time in Japan, as the assumption was that Japan was going to release, I don't know, a game or something. And then, no, it was just good PR getting a nice attention. I should have suspected something was going on because I was writing about the pre-orders of all these devices that came out. And usually the pre-order time is something like 6 a.m. Pacific, and this time it was 6:15 Pacific. So I knew something was going on for 15 minutes, and it was this event on the last day, this briefing, which is where I first saw shots of the name Neo confirmed through photographs that we were sent for it. What did you think of the name Neo?
I rejected it at first, and I still think it's kind of a silly name because if you're of a certain age, it definitely evokes a different time. For me, it's the early 2000s, late 90s era. Everyone automatically goes to the Matrix, but the main character being Neo. But there's also just the overuse of the term because it's Greek for new, and even the big experience that I had with Neo was when I was like 9. Pokemon had just become like a revolution in the United States. It was taking over, and then suddenly there was more of them, and this was very exciting because there was only 150, and now there's 60 more. What? That's crazy talk. And I didn't hear, and this is, we didn't really have cable at home. It was off and on throughout my childhood. So I didn't really have access to a lot of, I definitely didn't have internet or a computer. Yeah. And I remember we traveled to a town called Gatlinburg. It's a kind of a resort town. And there was these shops selling Japanese cards, and emblazoned across the front in English was Pokemon Neo, and I will always remember that. That was a very big thing because it's like, whoa, they have Pokemon in Japan that I've never even seen before. And it just turns out it was the release for the set that was coming soon also. Anyway, but yeah, Neo has been used a lot in history. We've seen it. Microsoft had a Surface Neo.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Goodness.
It never released. It was a dual screen touch tablet. It was a foldable, but the screen didn't fold. It had hinges. Yes.
Yes. It seemed a good idea at the time. I seem to remember thinking, but obviously not shippable.
Yeah. Like a Nintendo dual screen DS.
My mind went to Elgato's Neo range, which is pretty recent. Yeah, the Stream Deck Neo and things like this. The lights that are the Neo range. That I was certain because of that Apple wouldn't do the same thing, but I was obviously wrong.
Yeah, some people have said, Neo's been used on budget things before. I think it's just random. It's just a word. Apple was asked about this, one of their marketing chiefs, and they just basically said, we wanted something new and fresh to reflect the device. And they said that to not associate it with the 12-inch MacBook from 2015 because that was a premium device. It cost $1,300. And This is, they rethought it from the ground up. This didn't start as a MacBook Air that they removed some parts from. They said they literally redesigned it from the ground up to be this affordable new product. And I guess new is why they chose Neo. Yeah.
The video they released of them designing it, it's just incredibly well done. I think it's a work of art. This stroking corners around the aluminium exchange. I mean, beautifully done. Remarkably so, I think. But I tell you, I feel in some ways we're getting ahead. Let's go back through it because we have a lot of products here. Let's take them in release order because on Monday, right, they dropped... which one would Monday have been? Well, the iPhone 17e, and I have strong opinions about this. Do you think that was a good first thing to launch?
Well, it was expected. It was needed. Actually, a little later, by a week, I think. Last year, it was the end of February when the 16E was revealed. So this was just an absolutely necessary reveal and excellent on all counts. It's a very affordable iPhone. Affordability, I guess, is the theme this week. But MagSafe returns, A19 processor. I really think this is a pretty masterful product. Like, I've seen, this is the internet. We're going to get into it with these other products too, of just like, well, this is a compromised device. Nobody likes it. And it's just like, who are you?
Yes.
Like, this was an immediate order for my mom who was using an iPhone 13.
Oh, right.
And it came in pink. And this is going to be transformative how much better than the iPhone 13 this device is. So the people who jump to, Apple's intentionally selling a compromised device to make more money, it's like, actually, stop being so cynical. If you look at it through the right lens, they're addressing a wider market and providing pretty premium features. Yeah. Again, we'll have this discussion with the Neo, but find me a smartphone this powerful with this good of systems and cameras and display at this price. I know Android has some really good $199, $299 options. Like, you will find some good ones, but there will always be something it's not quite as good at. Either the display won't be as good, or the camera won't be as good, or the processor. You won't get it all in one, which the 17E provides.
I did think last year, I think I'm probably more of a pro user. Throughout the years, every time I've upgraded, I've spent a long time thinking, do I go regular or do I go pro? And so far, every time, if I've upgraded at all, I've ended up with pro and usually been very glad. I've always been very glad with it. I may not use it excessively, but there are features in the pro that do make it worth it for me. Last year, when the 16E came out, I had a bit of doubt, actually, because that was a good enough package that the case for arguing to spend more was much harder. And one of the things that eased that, I thought, was the lack of MagSafe. If you haven't a MagSafe, then what would you care? But if you have, you know how useful it is, and that didn't have it, and that would have held... If I were buying, that would have held me back. This year, I don't know, that's 17E with MagSafe. It's, so appealing that I'm wondering how it's going to affect the rest of the range.
Well, this just gets back to Apple's price ladder. Obviously, if you bump up the storage and you start getting close to a discounted 17, fine, you might jump the ship. It's also, financing is just so cheap. Trading in the 13 got us this phone for $400.
Oh, right. Wow.
And that's $16 a month, but we just went ahead and paid the $400 because that's just not that bad of a buy-in for this device. So people always worry about, cannibalization at Apple, and I think it's funny because Apple proudly says that they're happy to cannibalize themselves, but these products, they're not going to cannibalize sales because, honestly, it's targeting the people who didn't upgrade that often, who want a less expensive device that still does everything they need it to do, and they were probably upgrading to the base, 11, 15, and then waiting for the 19 because these are $1,000 smartphones. But if this $500 price point can get them to upgrade every 2 years instead of every 4 or 5, that's a win for Apple and the consumer because now they're getting a more secure, more powerful device more often and spending the same amount, if not less money.
That makes sense. I am someone who doesn't upgrade every year. I really wonder what I will do this time. I can't see me upgrading to a 17E by September's time. It'll be one of the new ones I'm tempted by, but then will it be I'm going to say it, I know you don't agree with this, the iPhone Fold, or will it be the Pro Max? Don't know yet, but great that the Strange is available.
Yeah, and this is what's interesting about Apple's lineup. This is we've been talking about this product forever, of Apple needs a quote-unquote budget iPhone. And the SE, it was too compromised and came out way too rarely.
Yeah.
They were releasing it every 3 or 4 years, and it would get the modern chipset and then quickly lose its luster because it would just not be touched again. Whereas this is an annual device. It lets people have the opportunity to have the latest and greatest tech without breaking the bank whenever they're ready to upgrade. It's a better strategy. And I don't think we ever mentioned Apple Insider Plus, but we can mention it here because I think it fits. Today we're going to be talking about Neo as a product category for Apple. Can they make different Neo products? As the MacBook Neo as a template, can we apply it and get a iPhone Neo or an iPad Neo? So we're going to get into it there, because if we want to talk about an even more budget iPhone somehow, it would be this iPhone Neo, and they could aim for $199. We'll get into it in the after show, but it's one of those things where I don't think Apple needs it. A lot of people do think so, but if we look at the numbers, more people switch to iPhone than away from iPhone, and that's been the case for a decade. The numbers are relatively close, so there's still people switching away. Android's still a very large category, but Apple's been gaining ground percentage point at a time for a very long time. And something like the iPhone 17e secures that for them even more. And the further down market they go, the more market they can secure. So I think this is probably the bottom of the iPhone, at least for the foreseeable future, as long as this technology remains somewhat expensive. But yeah, we'll get to it in the after show.
I should say, since you bring it up, Apple Insider Plus is, of course, the extended ad-free edition of the podcast. And if you aren't already a subscriber to it, you can subscribe to us through Apple Podcast subscriptions. For some reason, I struggle over that word, or Patreon. Much easier. And in either case, it'd be a treat to have you. It's extended, but also ad-free. But now, one release that came out this week that immediately made me think of you was also on the Monday, wasn't it? It was the M4 iPad Air. It seemed to me that was slightly faster than the last iPad Air, but otherwise nothing exciting. Or, I mean, you are iPad man. Were you thrilled by that?
It keeps us modern. That's the whole point of this product, is if you are an iPad Air person and you have maybe an M2 model and we're thinking about upgrading, well, this is your upgrade. You don't need to get a new iPad Air every year unless there's just something drastic. But this year, definitely, these last couple of years, has not been very drastic. The M series from M2 to M4 has been, even M5 has been somewhat very small steps in important ways, but small. So nothing here to really talk about. It's an M4. It's been slightly. I think it dropped a core and CPU and GPU.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. Binned is a great word because it means basically wasn't right, would have been chucked in the bin, but we're saving it, plugging it in a different machine and charging less. But I feel that's a harsh way of describing it. It is binned. It does have fewer cores. I can never remember the number of cores for which and things, but it presumably is less powerful than if it weren't binned. So should I care, or is the difference, that trivial?
I mean, if you're buying an iPad Air, it doesn't matter. What's important here is that you need to know that it has excellent single-core performance, which is what the M series chips are known for. It's what Apple's silicon is known for, is single-core blows everything else away in the category in this price range. You can't buy an Android tablet that performs the way an iPad Air does, period, let alone in this price range, because just Snapdragon just isn't competing on this M series line. I mean, if we want to talk about Intel-based like Windows PC, laptop, tablet hybrid things, like we could probably find something weird, but it would cost $2,000 and still need a fan and 800-watt brick to keep it powered on or something. I'm exaggerating slightly, but
only slightly.
Windows
but
machines,
yeah.
they're just not a very efficient. Anyway, the single core performance in M4 is what you care about in an iPad for the most part. Like maybe you might run Final Cut on this because it can, I believe.
Yeah, I've tried
so
it. Yes. Yeah.
It's more for I need a drawing tablet with a good display that isn't a base level iPad. Maybe I want a 13-inch iPad, which the Air offers.
Yeah.
But I don't want to spend all the money on a Pro, and I want to upgrade more often. So the Air is a good middle ground option. And I don't really see any issue with it having the bin chip. It keeps the price where it is. Apple's margins wide, and the user honestly wouldn't notice unless they're trying to like play maxed out video game graphics on the iPad, which again, it's really just not for that. You can play Resident Evil on these things, but I don't really recommend it.
No, nor do I, but for different reasons. I could say, before this, with the last version of the iPad, I spent such a long time trying to decide between the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, and in the end, I went the Pro route for Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro, and things that I could see when I was trying them side by side were different. But also the screen's gorgeous for it. So there's
nothing else in the market has these displays.
No.
Period. Not even Apple. Like, it's just iPad Pro. It's kind of impressive.
This episode is brought to you by NordStellar. NordStellar is a threat exposure management platform for businesses. It detects cyber threats against your whole company. It helps you take control before any of those can escalate. NordStellar can monitor the dark web to uncover targeted attacks against your firm or your brand or your executives. Its attack surface management finds external vulnerabilities before attackers exploit them. So for C-level managers, this provides faster detection, provides prioritization. It gives you real-time visibility of risks, and it also gives you a stronger compliance posture. Then for your security teams, NordStellar has contextualized insights, adversary tracking, and malware logs. But then for your entire company, using NordStellar means safeguarding employees and customers from phishing, from identity abuse, from account takeovers. Made by the team behind NordVPN, NordStellar is about proactive protection. Do not wait until your company's data is already for sale on the dark web. Protect your business today with NordStellar. NordStellar has flexible plans that scale with your business size, and right now you can unlock a 10% discount at nordstellar.com/AppleInsider. Get this exclusive offer. Unlock your 10% discount on NordStellar with the coupon code NordAppleInsider-10-NordStellar. Just go to nordstellar.com/AppleInsider and tell NordStellar where you came from. And thank you to NordStellar for supporting the Apple Insider podcast. Well, speaking of Pro, look what I did here. Look at the link there. I realised all of that was Monday. Tuesday was the MacBook Pro, 2 versions of also the MacBook Air, wasn't it, as well? But let's start with the MacBook Pro. My argument with the MacBook Pro is it's, like you just said with the iPad Air, it's like a spec bump. It's a tiny little thing. But that machine tends to be one that people who use it to its absolute limits. So any improvement is generally good and will be snapped up by people who need it. I'm not fully clear on the difference between the M5 Pro and the M5 Max and whether I should care, although I checked my Mac Studios and M4 Max. I splashed out a bit getting that. I'm obviously now behind the curve. But how does one decide between the Pro and the Max and M5?
You just know. If you're a Max user, you know. If you're a Pro user, you already know. Like this is one of those machines where it's very specific. You're not going to walk into an Apple store and say, "Hey, which one do I need?" Right. You know. Especially since the price essentially doubles depending on which chip you get. Wow. You can spend $8,000 on a MacBook Pro.
Yeah. Okay, and I rushed to give Apple that amount of money. You know, I must have spent 3,000 or 4,000 in 5 years ago on my 14-inch, then specced out, maxed out-ish. Right, it's frightening.
People forget MacBook prices for whatever reason. The 14-inch MacBook Pro starts at $1,700.
Yes.
The 16-inch, this is insane. I cannot believe the number I'm reading. They've gone up in price, haven't they?
Well, they have just gone up, yes. But I can't remember the 16-inch price because I've always ignored the 16-inch model. What price is shocking you?
Because, no. It has gone up because it used to be that it started, I believe, at $24.99. And this is $26.99. I don't know if that was last generation, but like since I've bought a MacBook, it's gone up. The base price has, but this is a $2,700 starting price for the 16-inch MacBook Pro with M5 Pro. Now, how much do you think you add on to get the M5 Max? So you're at $2,700 for the M5 Pro 16-inch.
It's not going to be $100, is it? Try this very quickly. See how fast can I get to the Apple Store to check this and sound really informed. I'm going to go with $1,000.
$1,200.
Wow. Okay.
You are adding an entire MacBook Air. You're adding 2 MacBook Neos.
Yes. Okay.
You could buy an entire Apple ecosystem for the price of a chipset upgrade in your MacBook Pro.
Okay.
This is something I wanted to get to at the end of the show, but I want us to price compare between Apple's budget line versus one MacBook Pro, but we'll get to that in a moment. It's just incredible how expensive this stuff is. And again, I'm not bashing it. This is how much it costs.
Yes.
It's just, but it also shows the value of those lower priced products because my goodness, I mean, I'm looking at this here. If I go to M5 Max, and I want to jump up my CPU cores to a 40-core GPU and an 18-core CPU. That's $300 more. I'm already at $4,400 just by getting a higher chipset. 128 gigs of RAM is $1,000.
It's a good thing that I think the MacBook Pro 16-inch one is unusably big. I think, desktop model is more sensible for it.
And of course,
but I know
storage is still horrendous. $1,800 for 8 terabytes.
Yes.
What's the current price for 1 terabyte of SSD storage? I want to say it's around $100 per terabyte. Maybe a little less.
You mean so generally in the market, not Apple's version?
Not Apple's. And I want to be clear, Apple's, people do this all the time. They'll go on Amazon and search like 1 terabyte SSD and it comes back $88. And they're like, look, Apple charges $800 for the same thing. It's not. It really comes down to the fact that it's how it's integrated into the system and the data read-write speeds, which is not what people pay attention to, and that's when it gets expensive.
Okay. Yeah, I do wish Apple's internal storage were cheaper, but then, I have plenty of external drives plugged in. Something I don't understand about the MacBook Pro, I read it in AppleInsider, that the M5 Pro and M5 Max are particularly good for high bandwidth AI, and what's high bandwidth AI? I asked Siri to do something, it doesn't do it. That doesn't seem like a kind of bandwidth thing.
This is more of we're talking about like Claude and Anthropic kind of thing. People running Claude bots on M4 Mac Minis. This is just more of that. It's throughput of on-device calculations, and these have faster interconnect bandwidths. Overall, how much data can you get across the interconnects in 1 second? These are faster. There's also the GPUs in these things. Each core has a neural accelerator, and now you can have 40 GPU cores with each one having a neural accelerator. So these are AI powerhouses, very expensive AI powerhouses, but they will meet your needs. And it makes me think that the Mac Studio, especially if we get an M5 Ultra, is going to be like, the performance is going to be insane. I can't wait to see what that looks like. I have no use for it, but the benchmarks are going to be wild. And we've talked about it before, how Apple's quote unquote behind in AI when they are industry leaders in providing the technology that runs it. So in any case, these are powerful little guys. The one thing that we can note here for M5 Pro and Max, and we can move on, is Apple redesigned the interconnect to be more efficient. And Mike and I were trying to speculate what this meant. I've assumed that this could mean we finally get an M5 Ultra because we skipped the M4. And that's because the interconnect, the M5 Max is essentially two M5 Pros stitched together with this interconnect. That kind of means that if we get an M5 Ultra, that it would be 4 M5 Pros stitched together, not 3. So we'll see. It's a few months till WWDC, and I expect we would get the desktop releases before then. But for now, we have this.
There's actually, one thing, we kind of circled around it. The new MacBook Pro, the price has gone up and all this is, but the MacBook Air price rose as well, but it got double the storage, didn't it? And also, Wi-Fi 7 seems to be coming into more things. Should I care about Wi-Fi 7 yet?
Well, so the Wi-Fi 7 thing is mostly because Apple's integrating its N1 chip into everything, except for a select few products. But N1 is being spread about. It enables Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 6. You can run your Wi-Fi 7 machine on Wi-Fi 6 or 6E fine. It's just you're getting more channels and more bandwidth with Wi-Fi 7. It's going to perform better, and there's more like smart home considerations in the new standard. It's not something you need to rush out and get, but those routers are getting cheaper. I know they're controversial at the moment because Netgear has tried to sue them out of existence and wants the U.S. government to block them from being sold in the United States because they're claiming anti-competitive practice when in fact Netgear just can't sell any routers. So I want to preface that with I enjoy TP-Link, and everyone's going to be like, but you can't use them, Chinese spies. They're fine. I've done the data packet sniffing. Professionals who know what they're talking about have done the packet sniffing. They've checked these modern routers. There was an issue in the past with a select spider-looking router that they sold that was apparently sending packets back to a specific server in China or whatever. This is not them. But I have reviewed a couple of TP-Link modern Wi-Fi 7 systems, and they are highly inexpensive compared to other systems, and they're night and day better than Linksys. And so if you're itching to get Wi-Fi 7, that's my recommendation, even if people turn their nose up at it because China or something. But I think it's fine to upgrade now. Just understand that if you upgrade now, Wi-Fi 8 is inevitable. We're probably going to be you're probably going to be skipping a generation here and there. But just realize Apple's slow to adopt. And if they're adopting Wi-Fi 7, that means it's probably time to go ahead and switch if you have the money to.
Oh, that makes sense. One more thing on that same day, the Tuesday, but actually I wrote about this. I can't imagine it is of any interest to anyone how I happen to write things, but in this case, I was assigned the task of writing about the 2 studio displays, and we've alluded to bits of this already so far, but I will tell you now, I'm staring at Apple's press release, and I am struggling to see what the difference is in the base studio model compared to one it's replaced. Now, of course, there are differences. 12 megapixel center stage camera, Thunderbolt 5. There are differences, but the way Apple was selling it was almost apologetic. It's like, well, yeah, there's this, but the Studio Display XDR, and that's really boomed on it. I could have written for an hour about the XDR, but not about the Studio Display. It seems to me that the Studio Display, the base model, is, I don't want to say rubbish, because I'm sure it's much better than the screen I'm looking at now, but of the whole week's launches, it seemed to me to be the least needed, weakest one. Am I just, biased because I haven't got a Studio Display. And you do.
Well,
Yeah.
I do. You get a bonus Thunderbolt port, Thunderbolt 5, and you get 2 instead of 1 in the base 5K model. The better webcam is important to some people because that was highly complained about, even though I've never used it once. So,
right.
Just, again, one of those things where people like to latch onto things, whether it matters or not, because it's a negative thing they get to complain about. Cool. It's here. It needed an update. It has a new Apple chipset in it, a different Apple chipset from the XDR. Actually, don't know which ones have what, but all I know is they have newer ones. It's fine. I remember the hype behind the Studio Display.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I jumped on one is it's pretty.
Oh, true. Yes.
The display is nice. It is the same 5K panel that was used in the iMac 27-inch from a decade ago.
Oh.
But that is how good that panel was. People treat that as a detriment. We're only just seeing in the last year competitors actually reach Apple's comparative quality. You can get a really good 4K, 5K, 6K display at a reasonable price, 27-inch, 32-inch, that is now comparable to Apple's Retina displays a decade after the 5K iMac. Okay, so I understand that Apple is overpriced here, absolutely, compared to the market, but you're still getting some benefit with these. I personally don't see a need to upgrade. I don't have $3,300 to throw at a display. If I had to choose, I'm going to spend between a monitor and an Apple Vision Pro. I'm going to choose an Apple Vision Pro, personally. So that this is kind of the weird thing is Apple's selling legacy technology. I'm going to offend people by calling a monitor legacy technology, but this is the place we are. If you need that Studio Display XDR, you already know it, just like with the Pro MacBooks.
But what
you
about
know
the
what you
fact
need.
The Studio Display, the new one, the base one, is still only 60 hertz. I
don't care.
I'm not wedded to that because when I've looked at it in Apple stores, it looks great. But it is.
There are people.
8 years old.
Some of them work at AppleInsider. One of them is named Mike, who really care about the refresh rate of their display. Mike also is super concerned with being able to connect his gaming PC or whatever over HDMI. Neither of which you can do with either of these displays, no matter how much money you give Apple.
Right.
So I'll agree with Mike. That is silly. I think there should be an HDMI port on the back of one of these, or you should be able to buy a special dock that lets you dongle your way into HDMI. But either way, that's clearly not what Apple intends these displays to be. And those are apt criticisms. I'm not, criticizing Mike for having those criticisms. They're valid. But they're also just not meant for them. The people who want these faster refresh rates, like 240 hertz with
oh right, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, like the gaming spec PCs that can use a chip on your gaming PC to do VSync, where the game is rendering at the same rate that the screen is refreshing, so you don't drop any frames while you're doing your button combinations to ensure that you can snipe people better in Call of Duty. Like, I understand why those specs are important, but Apple is not selling these as gaming monitors. One of the things that the Studio Display XDR can do, which is highly impressive, just like how the Pro Display XDR was maddeningly cheap compared to reference displays, which Apple didn't mention reference displays here, and I wonder if that has either just assumed to be a thing or is now gone. I'm not sure what they're doing there. But the thing they did do with the XDR is announce that it can work as medical. I forget the word for it, but they can display like X-ray results, DICOM, medical imaging. That is highly impressive because we're talking about $40,000 screens. I don't know, I made up a number. They're very expensive displays in doctors' offices, and this is fractionally the cost that can now perform that and switch back to being a computer monitor. It now means that the same display can be used by the doctor for computer work and displaying these results. They no longer need multiple monitors to do the same thing, and that saves money.
This episode is brought to you by Claude from Anthropic. Yesterday, right, I was using someone else's computer and it didn't have Claude on it. And for a second, I wasn't actually sure what to do. All I wanted was to just research a couple of things. And, I mean, I don't want to knock Google much, but I've already become so used to better answers that actually, I thought, no, I'll check it on my iPhone instead. I got to feel that I'm wasting Claude's potential. I mean, for example, I have tried coding with it, but kind of just for the fun of trying it out. Nothing, serious yet. But still, so many research projects start for me now in Claude. I can ask it for timelines on certain topics. I will ask it for lists of references and articles that I then go off and read. I don't actually remember when I stopped using Google for this, but then I know I've no intention of going back. Whereas I also know I have fully intended to try out the coding. But then, as well as that, as well as, coding whole apps or routines, there's already Claude's co-work. Now, I happen to use a lot of automation to start off projects. In fact, actually, this podcast you're listening to, that began with a button on my Stream Deck that created folders for all of the different elements I have to compile. But Claude Co-work can go further, and it can organize all of the files that go along with this. Audio tracks, chapter artwork, everything. That's really what I've got to look at next. Taking a moment now to explore what Claude can do for you saves so much time later. I have not one thin clue how I researched articles before it. Listen, Claude is the AI for minds that don't stop at good enough. It's the collaborator that actually understands your entire workflow and then thinks with you, not for you. Whether you are debugging code at midnight or you're strategizing your next business move, Claude extends your thinking to tackle the problems that matter. Ready to tackle bigger problems? Get started with Claude today at claude.ai/AppleInsider. That's claude.ai/AppleInsider. And make sure you check out Claude Pro, which includes access to everything mentioned today. Claude.ai/AppleInsider. And thank you to Claude from Anthropic for supporting the Apple Insider podcast. But speaking of multiple uses and things like that, I obviously need 240 hertz for writing in pages. I'm that quick. The Studio Display XDR has 120 hertz. That's very nice, but it doesn't have it every day, basically. You have to have exactly the right Mac for it to work. And some of those Macs that it won't support are ones that other 120 hertz 5K displays will. Why is Apple freezing out the lower end M series Macs?
So this is something people are angry about because, again, variable refresh rate isn't anything new. It's something that's been able to be run on older, lesser Macs for a while, or PCs or anything. I have a feeling it has something to do with just how it's communicating this information. And people generally are more okay with drop frames, whereas Apple wants perfection. And they've cut off any Mac that can't run the display without dropping a frame.
It's weird, though, that, I understood, the first thing I heard was Intel Macs can't do it. And I was thinking, well, it's been a long time since Intel was doing Macs. I had to have them, but somehow I expected the M1 would last longer than this. This is the first thing I think I know of where an M1 Mac won't do something that a later Mac will, like this. And that seems like a moment to reflect about. There is something else that, I have this thing that I save up questions that I know you'll be, purely for me. I am aware that Studio XDR has adaptive sync. I am not clear on what the difference between that and ProMotion is. Am I just missing something really obvious?
It's just Apple's branding for it. ProMotion might have a little extra sauce, but it's the same idea. Adaptive sync, especially over a Thunderbolt connection, it means it can have variable refresh, and it's also going to ensure that the display refresh is refreshing at the same rate at the same second as the other connected displays to it. So if you have 5 connected Thunderbolt displays, they will all refresh in the same way in the same time. That kind of stuff.
So it's not like the way with an iPhone getting ProMotion that I can have always on or some equivalent to it.
I mean, you could technically make a Mac have always on, but that would be silly.
Mind you, my Mac
I don't know how low
I don't
know how low the refresh rate is. I'm assuming 10 hertz, but yes, it it's fine.
Okay.
This whole refresh rate thing, I never answer your question. I just don't care. Some people see it. I personally don't. I can see how good 120 hertz is. Like I can obviously tell the difference in scrolling between 60 hertz display and a 120 hertz display, but also I'm perfectly content with 60. I don't understand the people who are offended by 60 hertz. I think it's just one of these things where they think, well, the spec got higher, so Apple should make the spec higher by default. It could be a price consideration. It could be a technological implementation consideration. I don't know. Maybe it's because if you go to 90 hertz, you need adaptive refresh, and that adds cost that Apple doesn't want to pay at this resolution, at this quality, that people aren't considering. Because again, you can get a cheap as dirt 1080p 240 frames refresh display and throw it in a laptop that costs $400. Right. Apple doesn't do that though, and so I think that just confuses people. The biggest difference between these monitors here, just to get to it, if you have an original Studio Display, you don't really need to buy the new Studio Display base model. It's basically the same computer, especially if you don't care about a webcam. And if you do care about a webcam, just buy a webcam. Don't buy a whole new monitor. That Thunderbolt port is nice. Maybe if you really, really want one, buy one and use two and connect it to each other, I guess. Mm-hmm. I can't do that on an iPad. So whatever. But the XDR clearly is the big boy here. 120 frames, mini LED backlighting, which is important. Not quite OLED. People are disappointed by that, but that would make it very much more expensive. This is a $3,300 monitor. Much brighter display, 1000 nits or 2000 HDR. Yeah, this is neat. It doesn't say that it's reference monitor capable in the notes, so maybe it is not. Or again, Apple just treats reference monitor as a given and doesn't list it in the specs anymore. I'm not sure which the case is. But if you lease this monitor, it is a car payment per month for 12 months. So there you go.
Oh, you said big boy then. That put something into my head. It's the Studio Display XDR is 27 inches. It is expressly a replacement for the Pro Display XDR, which I believe was 32. So you cannot now get a 32-inch screen.
No, and this is, again, one of those problems as nerds. Every time Apple announces something, they're like, well, that's not for me. You did bad. And it's just like, okay, well, or it's just not for you, and they did good, right? Like, you can differentiate between the two. We're adults with brains that can think.
Are you sure? Have you seen me? Okay, I'm aware of a 49-inch widescreen, and I love it to pieces, but the resolution is really low. I would like to afford a Studio Display, but I feel I would be losing out. Yeah.
These are beautiful monitors, well designed, carved out of aluminum bricks, Apple all the way through. You probably don't need one unless you know you need one. I like my Studio Display. I am happy that I spent the $1,600 or whatever that I spent on it several years ago. I'm going to hold on to it because without spending a small fortune, I'm not going to get anything better. And the better makes no difference to me because I'm using an iPad Pro. I think the M5 model lets you do 120 hertz adaptive external, which is, I want to throw back to when that was announced. I said, well, the next Studio Display obviously can support this, which it does. So there you go. But first off, I would need to upgrade my iPad. I believe I still have the M4 model. Makes no difference to me. I don't need the M5 model. But then I would need the Studio Display. I would be out $7,000, and I would have a setup that's basically identical to the one I have now with no perceivable benefit. So, yes, the brighter display and the dimming zones, great. That would be noticeable. But I would rather watch Ted Lasso on my television in my living room, not on my Studio Display. So, to each their own. Some people need this. The people who need the medical imaging technology, I'm sure, are celebrating right now. Like, this is an excellent, excellent purchase for a doctor's office or something. Apple is in the market of selling to consumers and businesses, and this feels very much like a business product that is going to do very well in that sector. And Apple is not in the market of commodity monitors that can be bought from Amazon for $200. If you want that, there's a market for you. This isn't it.
Well, you mentioned that about commodity, and although this isn't strictly, I wouldn't quite put this in range, that does bring us to Wednesday, which was
MacBook we skipped
Air.
The MacBook Air, which is fair.
But I'd totally forgotten about the MacBook Air. No.
It's got an M5.
It's got Wi-Fi 7.
It's got N1.
Okay.
That's it. And we're done. Moving on. MacBook Neo.
Okay. I suddenly missed the
There's
MacBook
nothing
Air.
To say about MacBook Air. Yeah,
well.
There's nothing to say.
Poor little MacBook Air. But yeah, MacBook Neo was the exciting thing, I thought, of the whole week. iPhone 17e, yes. But MacBook Neo, whoa. Yes, I like this. We need to explain. This is a radically cheaper MacBook, which, I mean, it's not cheap. Apple will never do anything actually cheap, but in comparison, it's a lot lower cost. It's about $500 or pounds less than the base MacBook Air. And as we've said in the rumors before, it achieves this by being based on an iPhone processor instead of a typical M series Mac one. Why, though, is that able to make such a dramatic price difference?
Well, I think it's not just that, because that's people like to look at one part of the device, and they're looking at the processor and they're saying, "Oh, that's what makes it cheap." No, this thing is a series of, there's not, for lack of a better word, compromises, but not in a negative way. You're just making compromises to get to that lower price point. Imagine it the other way around. If Apple started with the MacBook Neo and then worked their way to a MacBook Air and then a MacBook Pro, this would just simply be the base model that they introduced first.
Yeah.
But because they're introducing after the nicer models, people are like, oh, this is a worse version. No, like, it is comparatively worse spec-wise, but that doesn't make it a bad computer. So let's try and reframe this in a way that makes sense. If you are in the market for this computer, you're not coming from a MacBook Air or MacBook Pro necessarily. Now, I'm not saying people who own a MacBook Air from a few years ago, or aren't looking at this and thinking, "Oh, I could use that." But generally speaking, if you already are the person who buys the $999 MacBook Air every 3 years, you might not switch to the MacBook Neo suddenly unless you just decide that you can fit into that category. But let's get into it, because we're running out of show, and we can probably do a whole show on MacBook Neo.
I'm with you, because I'm hearing this story is rubbish because it isn't as good at. But this actually seems to be a flip from what we had before, which was Apple must do this. Apple will do this. It'll be great. Now it's here. It's what everybody said, slightly overpriced than I was expecting. Oh, it's rubbish, isn't it? People are just awkward.
William, we've talked about this before, and again, we can do a whole show just on this topic. But Apple is always bad.
That's true.
As long as you keep that in your head, you can understand everything that's ever written about Apple outside of AppleInsider, maybe. But the idea is, Apple hasn't made a budget MacBook that has been rumored, and as long as it doesn't exist, Apple is the worst company on earth for not releasing this product that everyone so clearly wants.
Right.
And then the minute they release it, Apple releases the most compromised product they've ever made. It's a pile of hot garbage that nobody should buy because it is an absolute travesty. Here's a Windows computer that can do it better.
Yeah. Okay.
The only reason why that happens is because both of those headlines get more clicks. Whereas a story that says Apple working on revolutionary new affordable MacBook that will greatly impact the market and absorb more of Chromebooks and Windows market share would get no clicks, because everyone would be like, yeah, that's what Apple does. They just sell things and they win. But a story about Apple losing, man, that's going to get the clicks. And that's what always is going to happen. It's bad until it exists, and then it's worse.
Okay. It's a tedious world sometimes.
Yeah. So that's why I hope that everyone listening enjoys our reporting at AppleInsider that tries to take things from a little bit more of a pragmatic standpoint, a realistic one. So let's dive into this device. This is not an iPhone SE, right? This is not the base iPad. right? Both of which have very specific ways that they approached affordability. I wouldn't even call this an iPhone 17e as far as like for comparative sake.
Mm.
And Apple said it right. This is a wholly new idea. The closest thing I can think of, and you're going to laugh, is the iPhone 5C.
Okay, so, for a beat there, I had to think iPhone 5e was plastic and multicolored, and I don't think a success. But
well,
it would have been lower cost.
It wasn't not successful. It just didn't sell it in a way that Apple wanted, and also plastic was just yucky, and they wanted to get away from it the minute they released it. It was one of those experiments that they did that just didn't pan out. So I don't know how to classify it, but failure, maybe not, just not the success they were seeking.
Okay.
Anyway, MacBook Neo, though, is different from that in the fact that it's not made out of plastic, first off. If you look at Windows, Chrome books, anything in this price range, plastic is a given. Metal, you're $1,200 plus already. The fact that Apple's able to make this out of aluminum already is a win in the category. Apparently, Apple had a Windows HP laptop identically spec'd and priced about well, not spec'd, but priced, because you can't spec it.
Yeah.
Priced at $599-ish, sitting next to this thing at the New York event. And it was a giant hunk of plastic. John Gruber, Daring Fireball, said that he believed that not only did it look bad, but he's pretty sure if he got down and smelled it, it would smell bad. just it was such a horrendously designed PC.
Oh, and they tried so hard, but okay, yes.
So, not to pick on the platform, but we've talked about this before with like iPhone 17e. Once you get to 600 and below, which is a market Apple doesn't really operate in,
yeah,
it's a grab bag of designs and concepts and ideas that people happily buy because it's inexpensive, but they are terrible products for consumers. They are invasions of your privacy. They're much more likely to get hacked or expose your data because they're ill-configured or don't have the equivalent security that more expensive devices do. They're more likely to run out of updates sooner because they're released with a version number, maybe gets 2 updates, and then never gets touched again. There's a lot of issues with products in this price range. Whereas the MacBook Neo, first off, is a Retina display, not 1080p, not 1440. It is Apple's full Retina, which I believe is still 326p per pixels per inch. It's sRGB, right? So that does not mean it means it does not have True Tone. Do you remember True Tone?
Yeah.
That's the blue light matching white paper. It ensures the paper white of the display is the same as the paper white in the room. So this does not have True Tone, and this is not an HDR display, and it does not have the P3 color gamut. It is just sRGB, which is fine for what it is. But it is still Retina. It has a big black border around it, no notch. It has a 1080p webcam. The trackpad is not Force Touch. But it is not a lever either. It is you can touch it anywhere on the trackpad and it will work. But it is a full click device, basically the previous MacBook Air trackpad. And then the keyboard is the modern scissor switch style, but no backlight, no pass-through keycaps. They are completely opaque keycaps that are color tinted to the MacBook colors, which there are colors: silver, indigo, citrus, and blush.
Yeah, I think you mispronounced there. It's silver, blue, pink, and yellow. That's how you meant to pronounce those words. But okay,
that's fair. Yeah. They're very silly color names. I will say it here. I've ordered citrus.
Oh right.
The base model, which does not have Touch ID. You have to spend an extra $100 to get 512 gigs and Touch ID.
So that is one thing. The $100 gets you 2 things. It gets the more storage and it gets you Touch ID. But
let's get down the spec list. I'll get the Touch ID in just a sec. There's only a couple more. Side firing speakers. So the speaker grills are in the sides of the tray, not the top. Where the vent is. That's how Apple used to do it, is they would fire the speakers out of the top into the display and mirror it back to you. And then USB ports. We have two. One is USB 3. The other is USB 2. It is capable of driving a single 5K display or 4K display at 60 hertz. And there's a headphone jack. I think that is the full list. It is Wi-Fi 6E. It does not have Apple's N1 chip. And it is an A18 Pro processor. I think that's the whole list, William.
Okay. I didn't realize you'd be in the market for one of these. Is this just for work curiosity, or are you finally coming round to my view of the
This
Mac?
is for work.
Okay. It was a shot.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to review it, and I'm going to be talking about it in comparison to... It's unfair. I will get that out of the way first. My iPad Pro setup is not comparable to what this MacBook Neo is or what anyone buying this would have. So that is not my approach.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But I'm going to be discussing the difference between why you would buy this versus, say, an iPad base and the Keyboard Folio, which is identically priced, William. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't. No.
If you can spend $599 on this MacBook or an iPad with a keyboard case, and it's the same price.
What sort of keyboard? It's not going to be the Magic Keyboard.
Apple's Keyboard Folio.
Right. See, I've never really liked
iPad.
those. So yeah. Okay.
So anyway, we'll get to that. So let's get to the design, because I don't know where we are in time, but I think we have 10 more minutes. So
yeah.
Touch ID was so is that your big sticking point, or is there any other spec that jumped out at you as, ooh, I don't like that?
Actually, no, even Touch ID, I was a little disappointed when I realised. I mean, mostly because, for whatever reason, just truly who knows why, once it was launched in the States, I obviously checked pricing in the UK, and for some reason the website defaulted to the Touch ID version. So it was coming out here as $699, and I thought we were being overcharged. I thought all sorts of things going on. Then I realised I would miss Touch ID. I've had bad experiences with too little storage before, so I twitch at anything really below a terabyte. But not really for this. I think this is all fine. I think it's a really good specification for the price. If I were in the market, I'd be thinking about it.
I have a Mac sitting in front of me that costs $599 and didn't come with Touch ID.
Right, but that's a Mac Mini. It doesn't come with a keyboard at all. I'm sitting in front of a Mac Studio with an Apple extended keyboard that does come with it. In fact, actually, I spent £100 to get it. Yeah,
that's a fair point, William. The MacBook Neo comes with a keyboard, a trackpad, and a display, and it's still $599. That's kind of my point. Is Touch ID is absolutely a necessity of today's technology, because this is something I think I want to write about at some point. I don't know where I'll write about it, but it's in the back of my mind. Apple's biometric systems. We talked about this, I believe, last week, or it was recent, about Apple and privacy and the introduction of the 5S and Touch ID, and it changing how we think about security and privacy on our devices. That introduction of biometrics changed a lot, including basically allowing something like 1Password to become a highly attractive platform, because instead of typing in the 1Password password, which is anywhere between 16 and 32 characters, you just stick your finger on a pad and now you've authenticated your 1Password, right? Or now Apple passwords.
Well, yes.
You can't do that on the MacBook Neo. You have to type in a password of some kind every time you want to authenticate a password field or a purchase or anything like that, or logging into the Mac in the first place. But I will counter Apple Watch.
I was just going to ask you, doesn't it throw it to the watch or your iPhone for this kind of thing if you have them?
Ooh, see, I've never tried the iPhone thing. I believe that might be an option.
Well, when I do it, it will
powerful.
throw it to one or the other, and I don't always know which one it's going to go for. So I've used them both, but not through any particular preference. Yeah.
I want to take you back in time.
Okay.
To when I had an iMac, a 27-inch iMac 5K.
Yes.
This must have been 2016, right? So this is before you knew me. This is before I moved fully to iPad anyway. There was an app. This is also before Touch ID or any kind of authentication made it to Mac, Macs were still pretty much just passwords, right? It's hard to believe there was a time. There was an app called Knock. Do you know this?
No.
So
I don't think so.
So this is pre-biometrics on Mac, but post-Apple Watch. It's a very funny time. But you could get an app on your Mac and it worked either through your Apple Watch or your iPhone, that you could open the authenticator. So basically just you'd get a notification to log in through like you click on login on your Mac, and then it sends a notification to your phone or watch, and you tap it. And then you do a secret password by knocking on your device using the haptic engine. And then it would unlock your device.
Okay. All right.
Right. And then it wasn't until later that people were like, this is stupid. Let's just use the biometrics. Anyway, stuff like this has been around for a long time. I'm sure people will come up with clever ways to do passwords without a Touch ID sensor. It's not an absolute necessity. For me personally, I'm always wearing an Apple Watch.
True.
I would never use the Touch ID sensor, most likely. I would just use my Apple Watch. It's debatable. I would say the Touch ID sensor might be faster because all you have to do is reach up a finger, but then all you have to do is click a button twice on your wrist. It's debatable, but I'm not going to miss it. I got the base model. It's going to be a review. I want to talk about the device, how Apple thought about it, why it exists. This is where I'm coming from. I will definitely be discussing things like, can it run Resident Evil 4? The iPhone with A18 Pro can. How does it work with Apple Vision Pro? Yes, William. I'm going to connect my M5 $3,500 Apple Vision Pro to my $599 MacBook Neo.
Okay.
Yeah, so like there's going to be some interesting stuff here. I'm excited to try this thing out. It is very much work related. I don't know how I'm going to use this thing outside of testing, but at least I'll have it, and it's cute. I got it in citrus because I thought it would be the most fun to photograph.
Yeah, I would have bought it in blue myself, but
Indigo's too dark to photograph. I feel like I would lose. It would just look gray. That was the only reason I didn't get it, because I do prefer blue.
Okay, I'd have lived with that. But speaking of living with things, and this is obviously work that's going to come out later in AppleInsider because the machine isn't delivered yet for a start. When it is, people will be able to see it there. But in the meantime, how can people find you on AppleInsider? It's one of the things where the questions is the answer, isn't it? They find you on AppleInsider, but somebody wants to contact you directly. How can they do it, please?
It's Wes at AppleInsider.com for email. I've got some good ones this week. Someone was reaching out asking about the events and when Apple Intelligence was going to arrive. We didn't have time for the topic today, but it's still coming, guys. Don't worry. I think it's what we discussed before. It's going to be 26.5. Just be patient. Spring still hasn't sprung, and that was the prediction. Ignore the version number. It was always going to be spring. Anyway, you can also find me on Blue Sky, Hilly.tech or Hilly Tech, Hilly.tech on Mastodon, Hilly Tech on Blue Sky. Always happy to hear from you. Like I said, the emails have been fun lately. People love to reach out and tell us when we've got something wrong. They love to tell us things about what we said on the show. Just, always fun to hear from you. I try to respond to everyone that I can. And of course, if you want, you can always leave a review on Apple Podcasts. So this week we got, actually these were 2 weeks ago and I totally forgot to add them to the show last week. That's okay. Fantastic Faz 15. I love these names. 5 stars, realistic view of Apple. They appreciate the optimistic, realistic view, and that we can talk around the AI bubble and we deliver the real news. So thank you for that kind review.
Yeah.
Of course, as we've said before, we always try to make sure we're delivering an accurate representation of what's going on instead of a narrative that fits what we want to happen rather than what's actually happening. You wanted to say something, William?
No, I was just thinking through that, about the real technology news, the AI bubble. I feel like sometimes we talk about the AI bubble more we talk about AI, but I think that's maybe the right way around at the moment. I'm just curious when things will move on next. But I'm sorry, I actually interrupted you. You were saying that there were 2 reviews, I think you said, from a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have Poppleton21 with a very kind review, 5 stars. Great podcast. This is a longer review. We can't get to all of it, but they were very effusive over William. Love that he is provides great energy, brightens up the day.
Goodness.
And they enjoy our... Let's see here. Yeah, there's a lot of text here, guys. Sorry. Anyway, they say keep up the good work. There's a couple of specific questions we can get to in future shows, so sorry about that. But yes, they just say thank you, keep up the good work, and we're doing a great job. And I really appreciate this review. It's very kind of you, so thank you for that. And of course, if you want your review read here on the show, you can leave it in Apple Podcasts, and we will share it here, good or bad, as long as it's not strictly... Stop talking about politics. We will share the review here. So thank you, guys.
Cool. I say, Poppleton21, not only thank you for that, but I'm amused that you say it now because the business about energy. Truly, I came from school to the microphone for it, and I'm whacked. How do teachers do this every day? But yeah, I'll be back to normal next week. Okay.
Yeah. I will say, there's so much to talk about with this MacBook Neo. We will get to it.
Yeah.
There will be, in the after show, of course, we're going to be talking about Neo products, so you'll get more of it there. But don't worry, the main show will be most likely focused on this little device, as I will have it in my hand by the next episode, and in the middle of a move, William.
Oh, grief. I forgot about that. Yes, you're relocating, aren't you? Do you want me to look after your MacBook Neo while you do that at all?
It'll be interesting because we get the keys on Monday, and I'm going to be demolishing our house, moving it, but the only thing that will not be touched is the podcast setup. Right. We will podcast on Thursday, and then I will promptly rip it down and move it so I'm ready for the next week. It's going to be a lot of fun, William.
Excellent. Okay. Speaking of the podcast, this is the podcast. Look at the quality of information you get here. This is Apple Insider. In a moment, if you're a subscriber, you get Apple Insider Plus. But in the meantime, I should say thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Wes.
People want to get a hold of you, William.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you for saying that. In schools across the UK, but also YouTube on 58 Keys, which at the moment is doing great. It's going gangbusters because there's so much to talk about. We're in Scrivener month for it, and it's amazing how many people are really into that great writing app. First one's out, 3 more to come. We'll see what happens there. But thank you very much for listening to this. Thanks also to our sponsors, Nordstella and Claude by Anthropic. And Wes and I will be back next week, where, as you've just heard, Wes will have a MacBook Neo, and I won't. I will try not to be very visibly green with envy. I'm going to fail. Speak to you all then.